Hello and welcome to another episode of the Millennial podcast. It is your host, Mitchell. Before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know that we are now officially on the Google Podcasts application. So if you use Google Podcasts, we are on Google Podcasts. If you have a normal Android phone and you search or you click on the link that we have down in the description, you will open up the podcast and you can listen to this in purely audio form. I've been trying to get at least one podcast out to you guys a week, if not more. And so far, I love the feedback I'm getting from the podcast. If you guys saw the last episode with my girlfriend, we shared her experience switching from an iPhone to a Xiaomi Mi 9. She's currently using it right now, actually. But before I jump into the episode, I want to go ahead and thank everyone that supports me and uses the affiliate links. Without the support from you guys, real talk, we couldn't keep it going over here. The affiliate link money to you guys might not seem like it's that big of a deal. To me, it's like an extra $150 a month. So with that, I can buy new stuff, talk about it, answer questions for you guys, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you want me to buy a specific product to review, or you want me to talk about something, let me know in the comment section and let me know in my Telegram community. And I'll have links for all that stuff wherever you are listening or watching this. Okay, today we have a couple of things on the agenda to talk about. The first one is Mi Pay. We got the Redmi Go, the Mi Band 4 NFC with NFC, the Black Shark 2, Android One, and we are going to kind of finish up talking about Xiaomi's odd relationship with Android One. So first up, Mi Pay was just released along with the Redmi Note 7 Pro and Redmi Go in India. And it seems like this is something that Xiaomi is really pushing for in those developing markets. I think it's interesting that they are trying to combat Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and all of the other kind of clients. And I really wish that they would just integrate better with Google Wallet and add more functionality to that. I think that adding another payment service, it's obviously something that they're doing to try to create more revenue, but it's just fractionalizing this mobile payment marketplace. It's kind of a headache. What do you guys think about that? Are you going to be using Xiaomi Pay? Let me know in the comment section down below if it's something that you're interested in using, if it's available in your country, because a lot of this is going to depend on availability and like local regulation. Next up, we talked a little bit last episode about the Redmi Go, but something I kind of wanted to revisit on another podcast where I was just talking. Obviously, I had my girlfriend there, and we had a kind of a specific thing that we were trying to get to in the podcast. Something else is, let me go ahead and mute these notifications. Great. Something that I just kind of wanted to touch on is that Xiaomi is the biggest phone manufacturer right now in India. And Xiaomi is in like the top 5 for China. And Xiaomi is slowly kind of taking over other countries in Southeast Asia. And what Xiaomi is doing by creating such a cheap entry-level device like the Redmi Go, which has a Snapdragon 400 series processor, 1 gigabyte of RAM, 720p screen, 4,000 milliamp hour battery, is they are trying to kind of take almost an Apple approach of just infiltrating the market, right? Apple did it with iPods and iTunes and iPod Touches, trying to get people into the Apple ecosystem. And now they're selling people $1,000 phones. Xiaomi is trying to sell people $100 phones in developing markets and get them to buy into the Xiaomi ecosystem. Obviously, right now we see that a lot of the focus is on these developing markets in the Asia Pacific region. And obviously, Africa is going to be kind of the next logical step. And something really interesting that I remember reading back is how much Huawei is investing into the telecom and infrastructure in Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. And in the next 10 to 15 years, I think that we're going to see, and probably sooner than that, we're going to see Africa be like the next big place to come online after Asia does, obviously. So is Xiaomi going to focus on Africa? I think that'd be really interesting to see. I know I have some people in my Telegram community from Nigeria, I believe. Shout out to the Nigerian people who watch this stuff. And if you are in Africa and you are listening to this, do you see a push from phone manufacturers right now in Africa? Is there that strong enough of an infrastructure for telecom? Let me know what that situation is down below. Next up, we have reports of the Mi Band 4 with NFC. Now, we had a Mi Band 3 with NFC for mobile payments, but that was focused primarily on the Chinese market. We are now seeing a Mi Band 4 with NFC coming, and it's only natural to see them pushing for a Mi Band 4 release here in the next few months. I got my Mi Band I got my Mi Band 3, I want to say, at the beginning of last summer. So the Mi Band 4 is going to be coming, obviously, in the next couple months. I'm going to try and get it as quickly as I can. I know that I'm probably going to have pretty early access to it here in Vietnam. But it's going to have NFC, and it's going to be used, again, for more of Xiaomi's mobile payments. Next up, we have the Black Shark 2 that was just released. And this gives us a really, really good hint as to what the future of the Pocophone is going to be. Why do I say that? Well, the specs of the original Black Shark and the original Pocophone are nearly identical. With some of the hardware configurations that you could get for the Pocophone F1, you were running the identical hardware that you were in the Black Shark 2. Coffee break. And for people that were commenting last time about my coffee drinking habits, today I am drinking coffee with yogurt and milk and then some condensed milk. Those are all kind of normal things to have here in Vietnam. Coffee with milk is like café baxio. Coffee with yogurt is café sua chua. And coffee with ice and condensed milk would be like café sua da. So that's, I'm working on my Vietnamese, but hopefully by the end of summer, I'll be able to speak enough Vietnamese to do videos in Vietnamese for the Vietnamese market. So shout out to all the people that live in Vietnam. You guys are getting forced to learn the language here. But back to the Black Shark 2. The Black Shark 2 has the Snapdragon 855, 4,000 milliamp hour battery, 1080p display. It's got a bunch of gaming specific stuff for the phone. We have a phone cooler, vapor chamber, and it's going to just be kind of a top tier flagship with some of the gaming peripherals. So we are expecting on the next Pocophone, again, to probably have 64 gigabytes and 6 gigabytes of RAM base configuration with micro SD card support. And then I'm assuming a 4,000 milliamp hour battery and then another all plastic body or something similar to that. But the interesting thing, specifically from the Black Shark 2 that I want to talk about, is the camera, because it inherited the same camera that the Xiaomi Mi 9 has. It's the Sony IMX568, the 48 megapixel, or the true 48 megapixel sensor that uses pixel binning for active noise reduction. And if you guys are curious about the different cell phone sensors and why the 48 megapixels doesn't really matter so much, go ahead and check out my other podcast that I did. It was episode 4. And I talk about that. So we're going to see a Pocophone F2 or a Pocophone F1 version 2 with Snapdragon 855, probably 6 gigabytes of RAM, maybe 8. Probably another 1080p display, probably a water drop notch of some sort, probably an LCD display, probably a 48 megapixel camera, possibly another depth sensing camera, or I would personally like to see the wide angle, but I doubt we're going to see the 48 megapixel camera and the wide angle camera on the Pocophone, especially at that price point. So probably just the 48 megapixel camera and another depth sensor. Potentially we could have a telephoto, but again, I don't think we are going to get the ultra wide camera, which is a shame because I love the ultra wide. I'm hoping we don't have an in-display fingerprint scanner. I am just as happy to not have an in-display fingerprint scanner, have the really fast rear or maybe even side-mounted fingerprint scanner, and a no camera hump on the back. And I think it's going to be interesting just to see in general where Xiaomi's design language goes for the next Pocophone. What I want to know is, as a consumer, what are you expecting for the build quality of the Pocophone F2? Next up, there have been 2 devices spotted with Android One in-display fingerprint scanners made by Xiaomi. And this is probably going to be the Mi A3 and the Mi A3 Lite. And I think it's interesting that Xiaomi is going to all of these in-display fingerprint scanners. It means that it needs to have an AMOLED display. And so something that I find interesting as a choice for Xiaomi is to put the in-display fingerprint scanner on their Android One devices, because to me, what that signals is that their Android One devices are going to be having AMOLED displays. It means that they're probably going to be premium in some other way. So it's interesting to see whether or not they are going to try to cut corners on other places with Android One, or are they going to give us a more premium offering? Xiaomi in and of themselves have an interesting relationship with Android One, and I'm going to explain that real quick. Coffee break. Stay hydrated, kids. Okay. Let's talk about Xiaomi and their relationship with Android One. Xiaomi is primarily a services company. They do not want to be thought of as a company that profits greatly from hardware sales. And Xiaomi even prides itself on its low margins that they make on software. And so part of the way that Xiaomi recuperates some of their cost for the inexpensively priced hardware is with software and services. Mi Cloud storage, streaming music services, video services, advertising are all ways that you, in many ways, subsidize the cost of your Xiaomi phone. When Xiaomi uses their Android One line of devices, or when Xiaomi implements Android One, a lot of that profitability is taken away from the device at the cost of being more Western consumer centric. What do I mean by that? Well, I think it's important that we understand the kind of realm that Android plays in Western markets, okay? And in most Western markets, a couple of manufacturers dominate the marketplace, right? Apple, big market share. We have Samsung that dominates a big market share in Western markets. And then after Samsung, it is kind of a hodgepodge or a very diverse. We have some Nokia, some Huawei in certain markets. Other markets might be more popular with like Vivo or Motorola. So when we think of operating systems in Western markets, okay, and again, I'm saying Western markets because Western markets have been the primary focus of these Android One devices. Consumers have had whatever the Samsung skin or operating system is on their devices. They have Apple's. And then there is stock Android or Android One, which a variety of devices run. And then there's all these other different Android experiences that consumers interface with. So trying to push MIUI on a Western-centric market, especially when Xiaomi is pushing advertisements in some of MIUI, is a difficult proposition to do from a software perspective. So Xiaomi's kind of answer for this has been Android One. And it's worked for a lot of people, and it's worked for a lot of markets. And Xiaomi kind of relies on Android One as a way to not hamstring device sales because users do not enjoy the software experience, right? And so as Xiaomi is continuously trying to push into more of these Western markets, they need to respond to consumer needs. And a lot of the way that they do that is through Android One. So to keep in mind that Xiaomi is thinking of these Western markets as kind of wanting Android One instead of MIUI and thinking of the type of devices Xiaomi would be making for them, I'm curious as to what rebadge of a device or what rebrand of a device in Xiaomi's current lineup they would put Android One on to try to make a bigger impact there. And for kind of the last 2 years that Xiaomi's been doing this, they've been relying on their X line of devices, right? The Mi 5X, the Mi 6X, whereas the Xiaomi Mi A1 and the Mi A2. And so those devices were kind of mid-budget, entry-ish level, not quite premium, a little bit cheaper than kind of mid-range at the time devices. And so Xiaomi putting an InDisplay fingerprint scanner indicates to me that it's using an AMOLED display. Xiaomi generally relies on AMOLED displays for their more premium devices, like the Mi 8, the Mi 9, and then the Mi Mix series or the newer Mi Mix series. So if Xiaomi's putting in-display fingerprint scanners and AMOLED displays in an Android One phone, I'm expecting at least a Snapdragon 712. So maybe they might make the next Android One phone Mi 9 SE or something like that with an in-display fingerprint scanner, AMOLED display, and then have a more entry-level Xiaomi Mi A3 Lite with maybe a Snapdragon 672 or a Snapdragon 636 processor, and then give them the Sony IMX568 48 megapixel camera, and then price the one with the Snapdragon 363 at like $200, kind of like a badge engineered version of the Redmi 7 or the Redmi Note 7. So kind of the same specs as the Redmi Note 7, Snapdragon 363 No. The Redmi Note 7 has the 660, so for this device, maybe a Snapdragon 672 or Snapdragon 636, and then a Snapdragon 712, and then you price one at $200, and then another one at like right at $300, and you make it like the international phone, which I think for in most intents and purposes, a lineup like that would be good. Obviously, I would really, really like to see a Snapdragon 855 device with like a 3,800 milliamp hour battery, in-display fingerprint scanner, Sony IMX 568 lens or sensor, and then like maybe the ultra wide camera for like $400, because ultimately, right, if Xiaomi brings this device to market, who the fuck is buying OnePlus? If Xiaomi brings us a Snapdragon 855, 6 gigabytes of RAM, in-display fingerprint scanner, AMOLED display, Sony IMX 568 sensor, equally impressive and modern front-facing camera, and a 37 or like a 3,700 or 3,500 milliamp hour battery, with like a metal unibody, type of design, not even necessarily a glass sandwich design. Who the fuck is buying the OnePlus 7, right? Who's going to buy the OnePlus 7 with this pop-up thing if for right under $500 you're getting Android One, you're getting a great camera, you're getting a great display, you're getting USB Type-C. Who's gonna buy the OnePlus? I don't see the market for that, right? Maybe you give that Android One phone from Xiaomi the triple camera. You give it like the same camera from the Mi 9, and then you give it a slightly less premium or thicker build from the Xiaomi Mi 9, and then you price it like the same as the Mi 9. I mean, obviously there's like going to be weird like inner lineup fighting, but if you produce a phone like that, no one's buying OnePlus. No one's going to go to OnePlus to get that device. And then if Xiaomi introduces a Pocophone with like a plastic build, a Snapdragon 855 at like $330, I think you could probably justify enough of the price in regards to like camera, build quality to make whatever Android One device it would be more appealing. And you could differentiate that. And Xiaomi could probably go ahead and make up for some of the margins with MIUI. And that's just kind of, that's not my dream, but if Xiaomi wants to make a device to release into Western markets to compete with OnePlus, I think that's a great device to do it with. Something else to keep in mind about Android One, Xiaomi being more aggressive in their Android One devices, is that OnePlus phones are now being sold at local retail stores in America. And that's a big move. OnePlus has been known as and kind of seen as a tech enthusiast brand. So for OnePlus to be sold in retail stores in the US, it's almost like giving Xiaomi free advertising, because if Xiaomi makes that phone available in the United States, the OnePlus 7 is going to be sold in retail stores. All that Xiaomi really needs to do to kind of try to take a bite out of OnePlus is have their PR team send a couple thousand review units to YouTubers with American audiences, and naturally the comparison between the OnePlus 7 and whatever Xiaomi Android One smartphone is going to be made and people doing research about the OnePlus 7, which is now going to be available in retail stores, remind you, the first thing they're essentially going to see would be comparisons to this Xiaomi device. So Xiaomi can almost hack the system, right, by taking advantage of OnePlus devices being available in physical retail stores and consumers doing that research. Or at least from a marketing perspective, that would, at least in my opinion, be a great way for Xiaomi to take advantage of what's going on right now in the American market with OnePlus. Either way, whatever Android One device Xiaomi comes out with next, if it is compelling enough, I'll definitely get it and switch from my Pocophone to that. I would love to have I'd love to have like an Android One device to use for for a couple weeks or a month. And I think that it's really, really interesting to see Xiaomi doing kind of more premium, more interesting stuff in the Android One space. But that's going to wrap up the video today and the podcast. But I want to know, how do you guys feel about Android One? What do you think about it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think stock Android is overrated? Next podcast, I am going to be talking about smartwatches and why I still use old school, and by old school I mean like quite old school, mechanical watches, and why I think smartwatches today are kind of dumb. And yeah, so that's going to be the next podcast, talking about smartwatches, why I haven't bought any Xiaomi smartwatches, why I don't really like smartwatches. And until next time, guys, remember, you can find this podcast on SoundCloud, YouTube, Google Podcast. And if there's somewhere else that you guys want this podcast to be, I will do everything I can to get it there. But I don't know if you don't tell me in the comment section down below. So, guys, it's been the Mitchell Millennial Podcast. Let me know where you listen to it. Let me know where you want to listen to it. I'm out. Bye.